200 South in a safer and more visible way. Before, the crosswalk relied on signage and visibility flags for pedestrians to cross. But with this new light, we can ensure our fans of theater, music, and community events can move throughout the area safely.
That's it for this week's road construction update. Remember to keep track of these or any other construction projects in Salt Lake City. Visit slc.gov/construction.
Welcome to today's City Council meeting, also the debut of Councilmember Victoria Petro Eschler leading a meeting. Woohoo! Okay, we're happy to have you here joining us today virtually or in person. Thank you for your patience as we continue to navigate the COVID situation and try to make the best decisions to keep people safe. If you are here joining us on site, the Council continues to take precautions to reduce the transmission of COVID-19 and maintain healthy work environments. For now, although masks are no longer required in city facilities, we encourage everyone here to wear a mask since COVID cases are rising. Disposable masks are available outside our meeting door, or raise your hand and one of our staff members can bring you one. If you're here to give public comment, please feel free to remove your mask after your name has been called and when you're at the microphone to address the council. I also want to let everyone know that we'll be holding our next council meeting on July 19th out in the West Side communities. We invite you to join us at the Sorensen Unity Center at California Avenue and 900 West. Our work session will begin at 2 p.m. as always, and our formal session at 7. There will not be WebEx broadcasting, although we will put the recorded sessions up for your consumption at a later date. Thank you all for joining us tonight, and we will start as always with our Pledge of Allegiance. All right, just a reminder of the rules. Welcome to everyone who's joining us. If you are joining us for the public comment opportunities later on the agenda, we are accepting your comments in person and also through WebEx. For those who our only option is to call in, staff will be monitoring a separate phone line. Before we begin moving through our agenda, I want to mention and review our rules of decorum. These are guidelines that the City Council has always had in place to help our meeting progress in an orderly, civil, efficient way so that everyone has the opportunity to voice their opinions without feeling intimidated. In order to achieve this, our rules of decorum begin from the moment you arrive in our meeting. We respect all points of view and we welcome new insights. While giving your comments, please be respectful. Avoid yelling, profanity, or making racial slurs, obscene, or defamatory comments. If you violate these rules, your line will be muted or you'll be asked to stop. If you feel you need to use profanity or disrespectful remarks to express your point, you're welcome to email council members or call our comment line and leave a message. In addition, our staff will request your name during the WebEx registration process. To limit disruption, your name cannot include a message or violate our rules of decorum. If your name doesn't meet this requirement, then our staff will make every effort to contact you to gather that information. For those joining in WebEx, please monitor your chat in case we try to reach out to you. Amanda Wynn from our staff is helping to moderate the WebEx portion of our meeting and will be messaging with attendees to coordinate on any questions with your registration. Staff is handling a number of tasks. Please limit your messages to technical issues and minimal changes to your registration. If you would like to send a comment, please feel free to by mailing us at P.O. Box 145476, Salt Lake City, Utah, 84114-5476. Or you can email us at council.comments@slcgov.com. Or you can call us at 801-535-7654. And that brings us to item A4. The council will approve the work session meeting minutes of May 10th, 2022, May 24th, 2022, as well as the formal meeting minutes of June 1st, 2021, May 17th, 2022, June 7th, 2022, and June 14th, 2022.
Madam Chair, I move that the council approves the work session meetings minutes for May 10, 2022, May 24th, 2022, and the formal meeting minutes from June 1st, 2021, May 17, 2022, June 7th, 2022, and June 14th, 2022.
Second.
I have a motion from Councilmember Pui, a second from Councilmember Fowler. We'll roll call. Councilmember Dugan?
Yes.
Valdemoros?
Yes.
Mono,
Yes.
Wharton,
Yes.
Pui,
Yes.
Fowler.
Yes.
I'm a yes. That passes unanimously. All right, now we will move to our public hearings. Taylor Hill and our staff will be calling the names of those who wish to comment. We will call names of people joining on WebEx or in person based on the order of registration or received comment cards. Once we open public comment, Taylor will announce 3 names at a time so that people can have some notice and prepare to speak. When it's your turn to speak, Taylor will announce your name. For people in WebEx, she will unmute your line and you may begin. For people in person, please step up to the podium to make your comment into the microphone. Once you begin, please state your name and the 2-minute timer will start. At the 2-minute mark, staff will announce time. If you're unable to finish your comment, please send the rest of your comment via email, mail, or call our office. Our contact information is posted in the meeting room or in the WebEx chat. If you do not wish to speak, please either message our staff or when staff states your name, please let us know you are here to listen. Our first public hearing is regarding Resolution Capital Improvement Program projects. Before we begin taking comments, I'll turn the time over to Ben Lutke, Council Staff Policy Analyst, to give a short introduction.
As part of the annual budget, the council adopted over $45 million into the Capital Improvement Program Fund. The council approved, of that total, $14 million for debt payments and critical infrastructure projects. The remaining $31 million is going to be deliberated this month and next month. The CIP funding log has over 90 projects that are in consideration for that remaining funding. The staff report, the funding recommendations from the advisory board, and a separate set of funding recommendations from the mayor, as well as all of the supporting documents, are in today's meeting packet. The council also has a CIP webpage. It's available at tinyurl.com/SLC/FY23CIP. Thank you.
Thank you, Ben. Taylor, please start with our first public comment.
Thank you, Council Chair. It looks like there are 4 people here to speak to this item. The first will be N Canada, followed by Larry Sugars, and then George Chapman. N, you are now unmuted.
I'm going to pass on this one. I don't know what it's in reference to, this specific item. Thanks.
All right, and we will move on to Larry Sugars, followed by George Chapman, and then Nigel Swaby. Larry is in person to speak.
My name is Larry Sugars. I actually live on 900 West. I put a program that I called 9th West Corridor. What it entailed was some speed limiting signs because the traffic's really bad, in my opinion. I just live there. And to put some lighting in. One of my purposes is just to make the west side a little nicer. 9th West is a major street. So I'm thinking let's just make it a little prettier there because it's, it's a nice street, or can be. Thank you. Have any questions for me?
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
All right, and next we will hear from George Chapman, followed by Nigel Swaby, and then Daniela Di Benedetto. George, you're now unmuted.
Okay, I remind the council that about 10 years ago, an effort to tear up 11th East and remove parking resulted in a riot in the council room. Why are we trying to do it again? This is incredibly irresponsible and disrespectful and ignoring the majority of businesses and residents in the area that don't want the redesign. And the area is trying to get money for traffic calming in your CIP project. So why are you trying to do exactly the opposite of what the community is asking for on the Hollywood and 10th East, which is a great bikeable, walkable street, but it won't be with this 11th East project. It'll destroy walkability and safety for years, if not forever. So I'm asking you to save the last walkable, eclectic, non-franchised Sugar House businesses and not redo 11th East that way. And Pioneer Park, by the way, that's $3.5 million. That's an insult since the community doesn't want it. Pioneer Park money benefits rich developers, and that money should go to Fleet Block. Washington Park is part of it, and District 4 essentially is Fleet Block. So removing restrooms and trees didn't make it better. We need Fleet Block. Warm Springs should be made habitable and made into a temporary pocket library. Chris is right. Thank you for your comments. And you have a whole bunch of landscaping in here, but this city has a history of destroying landscaping that it spends millions on. McClellan Trail, Miller Park. So you shouldn't be having a bunch of landscaping. And doesn't Glendale Park need to be public within a year? And throwing $1 million at 900 West is throwing good money after bad. It really needs to be redesigned for safety. 900 West is dangerous. The city did that. They did a poor redesign, and that's a...
Next, we will hear from Nigel Swaby. Nigel, you're now unmuted.
Thank you. Good evening, City Council. My name is Nigel Swaby, and I'm speaking tonight as chair of the Fair Park Community Council. At the beginning of this CIP process, we voted as an executive board to support a couple of different projects this cycle. The first are a couple that have to do with street safety on 10th West, including a roundabout on 10th West and 3rd North. And I wanted to let you know that we still support those as street safety for not only cars, but pedestrians and cyclists is something that's really important. On the west side, there are a lot of opportunities that we have for crosswalks, painting, and other safety measures that I'm sure are in other CIP grants that applications that I urge you to support. The other one I want to speak to is the funding for Madison Park, which is slightly outside of our area, but we also supported that. Madison Park was closed earlier this year, and that took away the criminal element that had been there. So we're happy that the city agreed to do that, and we're very happy that the criminal element has not come back. In the master plan, Madison Park was slated to be closed at one point, but due to the development next to it, we don't think that that is the best option for that. And that's why we urge you to put the improvements into Madison Park in the CIP application so that more people will be able to use it and it will have amenities that people will want to use. Thank you for your time and consideration.
And then last we had Daniela De Benedetto, but it looks like they are having some technical difficulties and I am unable to unmute them at this time.
Okay, thank you, Taylor, for everything. Thank you to everyone who commented. I'll look for a motion. Anyone? Anyone?
The motion is to continue the public hearing.
Madam Chair.
Go ahead, Dan.
Madam Chair, I move that we continue the public hearing until the August 9th date.
I have a motion by Councilmember Dugan, a second by Councilmember Fowler. We'll roll call. Councilmember Dugan?
Yes.
Valdemoros?
Yes.
Mono?
Yes.
Wharton?
Yes.
Pui?
Yes.
Fowler?
Yes.
I'm a yes. That passes unanimously. We are now moving on to C, potential action items, and we have none scheduled, which moves us on to section D, comments to the mayor. We have our Chief of Staff, Rachel Otto, in person, and we're fortunate enough to have our mayor joining us via WebEx. Council, any comments or questions for the mayor? I would like to say thank you to the administration for working so hard to put together the alternative to fireworks. I attended the Jordan Park laser show, and while there's definitely some things that we can optimize to improve the experience, I think it was a tremendously successful first attempt. It was so great to see all of my neighbors out, and I know that took a lot of hustling from you all, and we spent more time discussing it than we should have, and I appreciate your energies. So thank you. All right. We will now move on to comments to the City Council. We're now at the comment portion of our agenda for comments about general topics and items that were not scheduled for a hearing tonight. I went over the City Council's rules of decorum earlier, and those rules apply here as well. We're accepting your comments in person and through WebEx for those joining virtually. And for those whose only option is to call in, staff is monitoring a separate telephone line. Amanda Wynn from our staff is helping to moderate the meeting and can message with attendees if you need to coordinate. Taylor Hill on our staff will be calling the names of those who wish to comment based on the order of registration or received comment cards. Once we open public comment, Taylor will announce 3 names at a time so you have time to prepare to speak. When it's your turn to speak, Taylor will announce your name. For people in WebEx, she'll unmute your line and you may begin. For people in person, please step up to the podium to make your comment into the microphone. Once you begin, please state your name and the 2-minute timer will start. At the 2-minute mark, the host will announce time. Your microphone will be muted. If you're unable to finish your comment, please send the rest of your comment via email, mail, or calling our office. Our contact information is posted in the meeting room or in the WebEx chat. If you do not wish to speak, please either message our staff or when the host states your name, please let us know you are here to listen. Taylor, you can begin with our first general comment.
Thank you, Council Chair. It looks like there are 9 people here to speak for general comment. The first will be Jeffrey Wood, followed by N Canada, and then Katie Pappas. Jeffrey, you are now unmuted.
Thank you. I just want to take a moment and have you imagine what a drug addict to you looks like. Now that you have that image in your mind, I'd like to introduce myself. I moved to the Jordan Meadows Rose Park area about a decade ago. I own a townhome at Wingate Townhomes community at 500 North Redwood Road, where I've served on the board of my HOA for more than 8 years. Just a little bit of background on me. My second most challenging accomplishment in my life was racing a Loto-Jot 206-mile race, where I came in top 10 in my category. The most challenging accomplishment that I've had in my life was getting sober. I'm a recovering drug addict, and I recovered. I use the Jordan River recreational space on a daily basis as part of my recovery process. The Jordan River to me is one of the most underestimated assets of our community, and the parkway has gotten out of control with drug and transient problems between 6 North and the Fair Park for many months now. Unlike other parks, the Jordan River has limited space, kind of perpendicular to the river, so it causes an overwhelming amount of exposure for anyone that's recreating along the space. And me and my partner regularly use it with our taking our dogs to the dog park. I run on it on a daily basis, and it seems every day we're exposed to uncapped syringes, drug paraphernalia, drug use, and the likes that go along with it. Given my history, I empathize with those in active addiction. I know what it's like. I've been there. But the city, I'm calling upon some help to at least inhibit where that drug use is done, to maybe find some places that are less exposure to citizens that are recreating. I'm sure Victoria, she's in my community, she's very well aware of it. It's just become very, very laborious and sometimes anxiety causing for me if I go out. Am I going to get triggered? What am I going to have to put up with? So I appreciate your comments and thank you for all you guys do.
Next, we will hear from N Canada, followed by Katie Pappas, and then Richard Homan. N, you are now unmuted.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, perfect. My headphones just died. So, N Canada, they, them pronouns. I have 9 items, so I want to go over them. Number 1, I would like the City Council to adopt SLC as an abortion sanctuary city. 2, only planting indigenous plants within Salt Lake City. That means vegetation that requires little to no watering to help curb the drought. 3, more city benches with less anti-homeless architecture. Number 4, rent control. At the end of the day, we need to lower rents, decrease empty apartments, and care less about landlord profits. 5, walkable cities, decentering cars, and building every neighborhood to be a 10-minute city to help curb pollution and environmental destruction. 6, I know on the council we have some golf lovers, but curtailing golf courses, they are a waste of water and exacerbating our drought. 7, instituting term limits and public election funding to increase accessibility to local government. 8, centering separation of church and state and equally weighing religious minorities, especially agnostics and atheists who are becoming honestly a religious majority in legislation. We're not all Christian and do not adhere to a Christian moral framework. 9, I would love to get more involved in the city, and I think there should be more paid opportunities or part-time roles for citizens to engage with, not unpaid, since that is accessible and centers white and wealthy voices within the city. I just want to end on saying that I've been feeling hopeless lately, and coming to these meetings is the only thing that I feel like I can do, as I feel like our democracy falls apart around me. So as a queer person, as a trans person, and as someone who's Black in Salt Lake City, I think it's really, really important that we get more engaged. And thank you for your time.
Next, we will hear from Katie Pappas, followed by Richard Holman, and then David Maxfield. Katie, you are now unmuted.
Hi, I'm Katie Pappas. I'd like to address the upcoming contract between Salt Lake City and the Utah Inland Port Authority. With new port legislation coming from the 2022 session, the city now has the opportunity to address many of the potential harms to the environment, natural habitats, and the human population of the Salt Lake Valley. No communities will be affected more than the marginalized communities of Westside Salt Lake City and West Valley City. Historically, they have been unfairly impacted by industrialization, rail lines and freeways, refineries, and waste facilities, and also suffered from underfunding of services. Environmental justice is finally being recognized as the important issue it is. As you negotiate your contract, it must be a priority. Working with the EPA and community leaders and residents will result in better outcomes for all. Some other important actions you should take. 1, in addition to the initial EPA study, tracking specific environmental justice metrics over time will lead to real improvements in the lives of Salt Lake City residents, regardless of the source of developmental pollution. 2, Salt Lake City should prioritize its share of the property tax differential to fund both initial and ongoing environmental justice projects as indicated by the environmental justice study. 3, it is important that Salt Lake City designate the right personnel to manage its environmental justice program over the long run to provide subject matter expertise and institutional memory so the city won't be reliant on state or federal groups in the future. Also, if Salt Lake City can develop a broad view of air quality impacts instead of using a piecemeal approach, you will be far more likely to be successful. Please use this opportunity to protect residents from environmental injustice now and in the future. Thank you.
Next, we will hear from Richard Holman, followed by David Maxfield, and then Carolyn Erickson.
President of the West Side Coalition. My remarks concern the environmental justice assessment that many have been working on with Region 8 EPA for well over a year. I believe there are logical and necessary next steps to be taken now, as well as follow-on funding that should be requested by the city from the Utah Inland Port Authority. Currently, I have a weekly phone call with Mr. Michael Winstrom, EPA Region 8's lead on this assessment. Today, we shared our personal opinions that it's time to get all of the principals involved in completing the assessment to a common table. The goal? To define the roles and responsibilities of all of the parties involved. We need to craft a path to gather direct input from the community and its leaders as a whole. It is time to begin the process of public and community engagement, specifically from those communities most affected on the west side. Concerning the city's contract with Utah Inland Port, The assessment must be a living document that once complete is maintained current so that progress towards the goals set after review of its conclusions can be measured. We cannot manage what we do not measure, and a one-time assessment provides only a singular picture in time that must have comparisons to be meaningful. Resources must be built into the city's contract with the port to ensure that progress towards justice is, in fact, being made. A living assessment can be the instrument to achieve the justice that motivated the request for the assessment in the first place. We know that there are inequities. The West Side has absorbed more than its fair share of health consequences because of environmental hazards, and these hazards will grow. The West Side Coalition advocates for the health, safety, and quality of life of West Side Salt Lake City residents. We look forward to joining hands to further this goal through the completion of this assessment and the funded maintenance of the assessment as a living document. Thank you.
Next, we will hear from David Maxfield, followed by Carolyn Erickson, and then Stan Holmes.
Hear me?
David, you're now unmuted.
Can you hear me now? David Maxfield.
Yes, we can hear you.
Hey, I just wanted to appeal to you guys about this storm drain problem that we have over here above 11th East. And I guess my application was turned down. Every time that we get a pretty good rainstorm, the storm drains above the Jordan Canal overflow because they don't have anywhere to go because they flow into the Jordan Canal. And so during the summer while they're irrigating, the canal pipe is full and there's nowhere for the water to go. So it runs down the street and it floods all the homes below it. And I was just wanting to appeal to you guys to try to help us out. Thank you.
Next, we'll hear from Carolyn Erickson, followed by Stan Holmes, and then Cindy Cromer. Carolyn is in person to speak.
Hello, I'm Carolyn Erickson from 368 Emery Street in Poplar Grove, which, along with Rose Park and West Point and Glendale, were all sacrifice zones, as the previous people have commented. We're neighborhoods where poor and minority communities have been disproportionately exposed for years to numerous environmental health hazards. Since its creation, the Utah Inland Port has failed to do due diligence, risk assessment, and plan mitigation incorporating environmental justice considerations in the planning process. On their website, in response to public comment, the UEPA board states, quote, "There are misconceptions about the requirements for an environmental impact study. The Port Authority has not drafted an environmental impact study because we have not embarked on any development that triggers the NEPA process," end quote. And there you have proof of the arrogant disdain for the undervalued health of residents of West Side neighborhoods by privileged men in pursuit of short-term profits from real estate development, resource extraction, and waste management. They thought they could proceed without challenges through the Clean Air Act, the Clean Water Act, then the Civil Rights Act, Title VI. 4 years have passed without the environmental impact study and public conversation to gather the collective wisdom of experts in the fields of technology and ecology, and especially sociology and public health. UEPA and this council bear an extraordinary responsibility to respond to the air pollution, the water scarcity, and the unequal harms associated with the port development. Thank you.
Next, we will hear from Stan Holmes, followed by Cindy Cromer, and then George Chapman. Stan, you're now unmuted. Okay, we will return to Stan and move on to Cindy Cromer, who is in person to speak.
Hi. I hope this is loud enough. I'm going to scooch down a little bit. In my last comment, I talked about a woman passing by as I worked outside who wanted to learn about plants. I could help her. She also needed housing. I couldn't help. My story tonight occurred a few days ago. It involves residents in Districts 1 and 3 and illustrates what the consultants told you this afternoon about displacement in Salt Lake. Displacement is occurring everywhere in all of Salt Lake's neighborhoods. It affects long-term tenants and ones who pay their rent and take good care of their spaces. The city offers no protection for tenants who are being treated unfairly, hiding behind the threat of state intervention. It could use the Good Landlord program far more effectively than it does. Here's the story. I'll check my time. My neighbor in City Creek Park told me that her rent was increasing by $400 a month. It had increased last year by $200 a month, and she asked for a new refrigerator. She was sure that the $400 increase was retaliation for her request for the refrigerator because other people in the building were only getting a $150 increase. Then her friend in Rose Park had 30 days to move from a house she'd been living in for years so that the owners could put it on the market. My neighbor knew of a vacant apartment in her building with the $150 increase. She contacted the property manager to ask if it was still available, and she also asked why her apartment was going up more. The property manager believed incorrectly that my neighbor's apartment was larger. It was exactly the same size as the other apartments in the building. The owners of the house in Rose Park decided not to sell after all, and my neighbor insisted that all of the apartments in her building were exactly the same size, and she's going to deal with the $150 increase for another 6 months. And all of this stress was unnecessary and a lousy way to treat very good tenants. But these stories are ones illustrating what housing insecurity is like in Salt Lake right now. It's affecting every renter, whether they're good tenants or not. Thanks.
Time. And next we will hear from George Chapman, followed by Charlie Montbunk, and then we will return to Stan Holmes. George, you're now unmuted.
Well, homeless advocate we have, but he needs more direction from you, the council. If you don't think it's getting better, and it's not, you should take charge and insist on appropriate and respectful direction and policy on the homeless. Alejandra is right, it's not enough. It's not a little out of hand, it's a lot out of hand, not just on the west side, but also in Ballpark and the open spaces throughout the city. As the police trying to decrease crime, how many they arrest? More than a dozen times. It's bad. And I agree with Cindy. The city should immediately recognize driving in place results and open up the west side to housing. That's the only solution because rent is increasing faster than anybody thought would happen. And Apartmentville, USA is not a solution. Why not allow small ADUs in the west side area? And Ballpark's $3 million plan is not as important to public safety as residents and businesses want. They want more public safety. And the ignored issue of Taylor Springs Gardens drug dealing that is blatant, that's your responsibility since it's your housing authority, and it's pretty bad. And use the EMT building for a substation. Don't wait for sergeants. Airport management is spending money on airport publicity instead of providing more assistance for seniors and mobility impaired trying to walk that tunnel, which discourages non-Delta flying. And finally, the west side quiet railroad zone should be paid for by Inland Port, and the city should be pushing for that and removal of those lines that, why isn't the city pushing that? So please push that. Thanks for listening.
And next we will hear from Charlie Montbunk, who is in person to speak.
Ladies and gentlemen, I stand before you an advocate. 2 years ago, my father came here and he asked you guys to build a cat park. And what did you guys do for these cats? Nothing. So I'd like you guys to build a cat park and make my cat at home happy. We need cat parks. Meow. Thank you.
And next we will hear from Stan Holmes. Stan, you're now unmuted. Okay, it sounds like Stan is still having microphone issues, so that was the last person registered to comment.
Okay, Taylor, thank you for your help. Amanda, thank you for your help. Thank you to everyone who commented. Councilmember Wharton, did you have?
Oh, yes. Well, I was going to move to approve the consent agenda first, but if the chair will indulge me now, I just wanted to comment on something.
So indulged.
Thank you. I did check with the rules first. It is allowed. I just wanted to say that I really didn't feel comfortable with the straw poll that we took, and I talked to Lisa Schaefer and the administration afterwards, and I got some information that really would have, had I known at the time, impacted a lot of information that I think we discussed, and I think that it would benefit everybody else to hear that as well. So I've asked her to work with staff to put together an email on that, and because it just is kind of a different facts than I had at the time. But I feel frustrated too that because of circumstances, it feels like we aren't going to be able to talk about this again for maybe another month. And meanwhile, the administration is going to be doing work based on our straw poll, and I don't feel like the straw poll, I think the straw poll may not be reflective of what the will of the council is because of this information.
Can you clarify which straw poll?
The one about the sales tax bond. I feel great about the GO bond. I think we're good there. But just on whether or not it was the best idea to separate them. Maybe it was, maybe it wasn't. I just don't know. Whether it's a good, whether the timeline that we put in place for ourselves is realistic or even necessary. I also don't know the answer to that. But I guess I just need to bring this up to put it out there to all of you and to put it out to the administration that I just don't know that the straw poll is reflective of what we all really want. And so I hope you'll get this information, and I hope we can have maybe small group conversations, but I really think that we need to have another conversation, and I regret that it's unfortunate that we can't have that for a while. So I don't know if there's a way to make it so that we can have that at the next meeting and facilitate Anna being part of that discussion or what, but I think we need to have it soon, and thanks for indulging.
Thanks. And I assume staff will offer us guidance on how best to proceed, or council chair and vice chair will help us understand.
I think the information's really new, so I don't know that we know. I don't know.
Well, and I think, sorry to interrupt. I think it's accurate to say that we're in the process of fact checking that information because we don't know that.
So we'll all look out for an email.
Yeah, and we do want to, I think, due to this information and possibly maybe update on that information, I think we should focus on this sooner than later, and I don't think we need to we don't need to delay this discussion if we have some better facts and information quicker. So I'm open to that, and I'm hopefully that this information will allow us to move quickly on these other three projects.
So, Madam Chair, as the person who made the motion, and it is my understanding that the whole purpose of making the motion was to streamline, not to slow down. So, because there is a lot of discussion about these three different projects, and that we can have offline and like see what the facts are. So, the purpose of the dividing this into two was to actually have those discussions quick. And I didn't want to wait as much as possible. But you also did say, when we were discussing this earlier, that we don't know, we don't know the facts. Anna was, Councilmember Baldemoros was saying that we don't know what the $10 million buy us on Pioneer Park. We don't know really how much we need for Warm Springs or Fisher Mansion. So there is a lot of questions that we need to, we have questions for. So I'm hoping that hopefully we can get information quick. This is not to not do those projects. It was to actually do them and do them right. So that is the whole purpose of this. And I believe that the motion and the straw poll did reflect what I want. It didn't reflect opposite of that. I think that we need to get to the bottom of this and do it right.
Yeah, and I don't mean to suggest that we made the wrong move. I just don't know now. And I felt like it was kind of rushed, and I think it would have been, I think it would benefit us to have this information before any conversations go further. And so we can decide as a group where we want to go. Because also, this information may answer the questions that we thought that we had, and maybe there isn't a need to delay anything. But I definitely don't have any regrets about moving forward quickly on the things that we agreed are most time sensitive.
All right, so let's look forward to an email, hopefully within the next few days, and significant conversation based on the clearest facts that we have available to us now.
Perfect.
Madam Chair, and I have one, and I'm not sure if it's possible, but unfortunately, I will be gone next week. I have a hard time believing that I'll have access to join you guys for this portion. Is it possible? Is it legal? Is it something that you guys want to do if we want to meet July 26th again to keep talking about having those discussions, or is that, are you guys scheduled out?
You're asking to add a formal meeting to the...
or a work session.
It would be up to the chair and a group of the council.
If it doesn't disrupt your time off and your vacations or your plans.
So I would think that it would be nice to let's get the information first before we decide we need to have anything on the 26th.
All right, so we have lots of possibilities and hopefully good information. Thank you all.
I'm excited for this information.
All right. Section E and F are new business and unfinished business, and we have neither new business nor unfinished. So that brings us to Section G, the consent agenda portion. I'll look for a motion.
Move for approval.
Second.
I have a motion from Councilmember Wharton, a second from Councilmember Dugan. Councilmember Fowler.
Yes.
Councilmember Pui.
Yes.
Wharton.
Yes.
Mano.
Yes.
Valdemoros.
Yes.
Dugan.
Yes.
I'm a yes. That passes unanimously. This concludes our formal City Council meeting. Please remember that next week, the 19th, is at the Sorensen Unity Center on the west side, which is the best side. And please remember there is no WebEx portion, so plan accordingly. Thank you for joining us. We now stand adjourned.
Oh, yeah. Hi, Carly.
Hi.
It isn't easy to keep your kids from drinking, but one way is to get to know their friends. Just stay involved. You'll get through.
Why should young people care about the spread of coronavirus? Well, we know that people with underlying medical conditions over the age of 60 are at highest risk, but they've got to get it from somebody.
So we're asking everyone to be selfless for others so that we can protect those who are most susceptible.
Not going to bars, not going to restaurants. It all just means physical separation so that you have a space between you and others.
For more information on how you can social distance, please go to coronavirus.gov.
In the 1870s, Commercial Street, which we know of today as Regent Street, was the heart of Salt Lake City's red light district. It flourished in that location for more than 30 years, despite frequent raids by the police. It was in the early 1900s that Salt Lake City Mayor John Bransford proposed to the City Council that they create a formal registration for the women who worked there, charge them fines of $10 a month each, and that they build a dedicated building for the red light district in a different part of town. The City Council agreed, and they went to work constructing what they called the Stockade and retained the services of Dora Topham, who went by the name of Madam Belle London, to oversee operations. On December 18, 1908, and at a great expense to city taxpayers, construction of the stockade was completed on Block 64 between 1st and 2nd South and 5th and 6th West. Women operating on Commercial Street were forced to ply their trade at the new location immediately or face arrest and fines. The red light district operated on the west side at that location until 1911, when Madam London quit after a run-in with the law. The red lights went out and the building was soon torn down. Women operating from the stockades soon returned back to Commercial Street, and business resumed normally, much to the dismay of city officials.
Heads up, Utah. Wondering what to do if you run out of gas on the freeway? Follow these 3 simple steps. 1. Move to the right. 2. Stay in your car. 3. Call 911. Following these steps will help keep you and those around you safe.
Truth is, I'm impressed. I haven't been asked such intelligent questions in a long time. Nice.